The call came at exactly 4:13 a.m. It sliced through the quiet hum of Maya Reyes's life, a dissonant and final note that would forever mark the end of one chapter and the beginning of a living nightmare. On the other end of the line, a monotone voice identified itself as Detective Vance from the Metropolitan Police Department. The words that followed were a cold, clinical blade. "There's been an incident. Your sister, Dr. Lena Reyes." Maya, a woman whose life revolved around the precise, predictable laws of physics, felt her universe shift. She was an astrophysicist, a theorist who mapped galaxies and predicted the movement of celestial bodies with an almost inhuman accuracy. She lived in a world of data, equations, and reason. But now reason was failing her. She stood in her twin sister's apartment an hour later, the scent of antiseptic and something vaguely floral hanging in the air. The police had already cordoned off the scene, a sterile tableau of tragedy. The officers moved with a practiced, detached efficiency, their faces unreadable. But for Maya, the scene was a brutal assault on her senses. She saw Lena in every object. The books on the shelf, their spines cracked from 1,000 readings. The half-finished puzzle on the coffee table, a solar system she had been assembling. The single, wilting orchid on the windowsill. Then she saw the official report, a flimsy piece of paper slipped into a plastic sleeve. The words were stark. Cause of death, asphyxiation. Manner of death, suicide. Maya felt her heart stutter. Suicide. The word tasted foreign on her tongue. It was a word that belonged in a different story, a different life. Not Lena's. Not the sister she knew. Detective Vance, a burly man with a tired face and a deep-set frown, stepped forward. "I know this is hard, Dr. Reyes, but all the evidence points to it. The note, the lack of forced entry. It's a tragic case, but an open-end shut one." The detective gestured to a small, folded piece of paper on the kitchen counter. Maya picked it up, her hands trembling. The handwriting was Lena's, a delicate, looping script she had known her entire life. But the words were alien. "I can't take the pressure anymore. It's too much." Maya closed her eyes and a different image flashed behind her eyelids. A memory from just 2 days ago. Lena, a whirlwind of vibrant energy, had been sitting on Maya's couch, talking a mile a minute about her latest project. "Maya, it's revolutionary," she had said, her eyes shining with an almost manic excitement. "It's a game changer. It's going to change everything." Lena had been on the verge of a major breakthrough in her work on quantum entanglement. She was a physicist, but she worked for a private corporation, Omnitech, a giant in the world of theoretical science. The work was shrouded in secrecy, but Lena had hinted at something big. Something that would make her famous, a Nobel Prize in the making. Suicide? A game changer doesn't kill themselves. Maya placed the note back on the counter. "This isn't her," she said, her voice flat and cold. "The handwriting is hers, yes. But the words, they're not. Lena would never give up. She was the most stubborn person I ever knew." Detective Vance sighed, a long, weary exhalation that felt like a dismissal. "Grief can make us see things differently, Dr. Reyes. We've seen it countless times." Maya didn't argue. She knew she was not grieving like a typical person. She was analyzing. She was a scientist after all. She saw the scene not with a grieving heart, but with a hyper-analytical mind. She walked into Lena's lab, a small, cluttered room filled with computers and strange, intricate-looking equipment. The police had taken what they needed, but they hadn't taken everything. On Lena's desk, Maya found a small, dark scuff mark, almost invisible against the polished wood. But Maya knew her sister's meticulous habits. Lena never left a mess. She would have cleaned that up. Maya knelt down and looked closer. There was a faint smear of what looked like dust, but it had a metallic sheen. It was too precise to be random. It was the mark of something heavy being dragged. Then there was Lena's laptop. The police had taken it, but Maya knew Lena had a backup hard drive. She found it, not in a drawer where Lena usually kept it, but hidden behind a stack of books. The label was in Lena's own hand, Project Nightingale. Back in the privacy of her own apartment, Maya connected the hard drive to her computer. It was encrypted with a password only she would know, their childhood pet's name, their mother's birthday, and a sequence of numbers from a constellation they used to stare at together. The drive hummed to life, revealing a trove of data. It was Lena's life's work. And then Maya found it. A hidden folder within a folder titled Observations. Inside were encrypted video files. She opened the first one. It was a video of Lena, looking straight at the camera, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and excitement. "If you're watching this, Maya," Lena began, her voice a little shaky, "it means something has gone wrong. I can't trust anyone at the lab anymore. I think they're watching me. The project, it's not what they told me it was. Maya's breath caught in her throat. She fast-forwarded through several more videos. Lena's voice became more frantic, her explanations more fragmented. She spoke of a new type of quantum technology, a way to transfer data not just across distances, but through time. But the company, Omnitech, wasn't using it for scientific advancement. They were using it to manipulate markets, to steal classified government information, and to erase traces of their crimes before they were ever committed. They call it the quantum echo, Lena said in a video from a week before her death. They can send a signal back in time to change the outcome of an event. A stock market crash, an election, they could use it to control everything. And I told them I wouldn't be a part of it. Lena's last video was a frantic, terrifying plea. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hair disheveled. They're onto me, Maya. I tried to destroy the data, but I think they found me out. If anything happens to me, it wasn't suicide. I would never leave this world without exposing them. I've hidden the final piece of evidence, in plain sight. You'll know where to look. We always did. The video cut to black. Maya sat in the dark, the words replaying in her mind. Hidden in plain sight. We always did. It was a reference to a childhood game they played. They would hide a prized possession, a favorite toy, a letter, in a place so obvious no one would ever think to look. The one place they could trust each other not to look first. The realization hit her like a physical blow. The puzzle. The solar system. It wasn't a random hobby. It was a map. Maya drove back to Lena's apartment in the dead of night. The police tape was gone, but the door was still locked. She picked the lock, a skill she'd learned years ago just for fun, and slipped inside. The apartment was cold and dark. She went straight to the coffee table and began to dismantle the puzzle. It was a complex mosaic of planets and stars. She worked with a quiet, furious intensity, her mind racing. She carefully peeled back the cardboard backing of the puzzle. There, taped to the back of a small, nondescript piece of a nebula, was a microSD card. It was so small, a casual observer would never have seen it. She had found it. The final piece of evidence. But as she stood up, a sound from the kitchen made her freeze. A low, metallic scraping. Someone else was in the apartment. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. She was no detective, no spy. She was a scientist, but she had a plan. She backed away from the coffee table and moved silently toward the front door. The sound grew louder. Someone was rummaging through Lena's desk. They were looking for something. They were looking for this. She made it to the hallway and slipped out the door, pulling it shut behind her. She didn't run. She walked quickly, calmly down the stairs and out into the night. She got into her car and sped away. She didn't look back. The next morning, she went to the only person she could trust, a former professor, an old family friend, and a retired federal agent named Dr. Eris Thorne. He was a man with a mind as sharp as her own, but with a lifetime of experience in a world she only saw on television. She explained everything from the suspicious note to the video files and the SD card. Eris listened, his face impassive, his eyes betraying no emotion. When she finished, he didn't say a word. He just took the SD card from her and plugged it into his computer. The data was a compressed file, a final report from Lena. It was a meticulously detailed account of Project Nightingale, the names of the key players, and most damningly, a series of logs that showed the technology being used to manipulate a global financial market just 2 days before Lena's death. The logs were dated and time-stamped, a digital trail of a crime in progress. Eris leaned back in his chair, a slow, grim smile spreading across his face. "You found it, Maya?" A smoking gun. The suicide note was a classic misdirection. The people who did this, they're not just criminals. They're ghosts. They make things disappear, including people. Who are they? Maya asked, her voice barely a whisper. The board of directors at Omnitech. And their biggest investor, a man named Sterling Vance. The name hit Maya with the force of a physical blow. Vance? As in Detective Vance. Eris nodded slowly. His brother. And he's on the board. He's the one who would have filed the initial report, the one who would have made the case disappear as quickly as possible. The perfect alibi. Maya's mind reeled. It wasn't just a simple murder. It was a cover-up, a conspiracy. The police had been compromised from the very beginning. Eris placed a call to a trusted contact at the FBI. "I have a package for you," he said into the phone, his voice low and serious. "Evidence of a homicide. A conspiracy. And it goes all the way to the top." The FBI agents arrived within the hour. They took the hard drive, the SD card, and Maya's statement. They moved with a silent, focused intensity. They didn't thank her. They didn't have to. The look in their eyes was enough. They knew they had a tiger by the tail. The next few weeks were a blur of interviews, polygraph tests, and meetings with lawyers. The case, once dismissed as a simple suicide, was reopened as a homicide. The media went wild. Dr. Lina Reyes, the quantum physicist who had changed the world, had been murdered by her own company. The name Sterling Vance was everywhere. Detective Vance was arrested, a quiet, almost resigned figure led away in handcuffs. The public was outraged. How could a system be so corrupt? How could a man whose job it was to protect the public be the very one to betray them? The company, Omnitech, was placed under a massive federal investigation. Their stock plummeted, their executives resigned in disgrace, and the truth of Project Nightingale, the quantum echo, was finally exposed. The night of the arrests, Maya sat in her apartment, the silence now a comforting presence, no longer a jarring reminder of what she had lost. She looked at a photograph of her and Lina, taken on their 30th birthday. They were smiling, their faces a mirror of each other, their eyes shining with a shared joy. She had gotten justice. But it was a cold, hard justice, born from a tragedy she still couldn't fully comprehend. She had solved the mystery. But the answer hadn't brought her sister back. It had only brought her a new understanding of the world. A world that was no longer a series of predictable equations, but a dark, tangled web of lies and secrets. The case was closed, but the mystery of what drove her sister to such a desperate end was not. She had fought for justice not just for herself, but for all the brilliant minds who had been silenced by a system that valued power over truth. She was no longer just an astrophysicist. She was a witness, a survivor, and a keeper of a secret that the world now knew. The rain started to fall again, a quiet, insistent drumming against the window. It was a familiar sound, but now it felt different. It felt like a cleansing, a final note in a symphony of grief and resolution. Maya Reyes sat in the dark, her hands clasped around her sister's photograph. The death certificate had said suicide. But the truth, a truth Maya had found in the depths of her grief and the labyrinth of her sister's secrets, screamed murder. And she had given that truth a voice.